My name's Jack Kelly. I'm a freelance cinematographer.
I'm Lauren Baciuano. I'm a writer, director, producer.
My name's Igor Shmarian. I'm a producer.
Trueface was a culmination of two sides of myself. So one side was discovering my love for cabaret and burlesque and that sort of culture and style of performance. I did musical theatre back before I did my performance degree, and so that's something that just started feeding into my life a little bit. And the other side is relationship experiences and experiences with different people of different personalities, and sort of teasing out the idea that, you know, some people would judge me or my friends for how we behaved or what we did or said, and I just found it interesting that those people didn't know our history or our background and didn't know how or why we behaved. And so I one day thought it would be interesting to record a conversation between my best friend and I at a cafe, because she tended to talk about explicit information very loudly. So I put my phone on record, didn't let her know, and sort of had coffee and did what we did. And at the end I said, "Hey babe, just letting you know, I recorded everything. Is that cool?" And she's like, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Well, I want to actually use that as a starting point for a script. Do you mind if I do that?" "Oh yeah, that's fine." So I just started with little scenes that I thought were really interesting, and I didn't rush my process. I kind of went, here's this little starting point. I'm going to lay off it now and see what else inspires me. And I kind of sat back, and when something popped up and went, you know what, that, you know, interaction between those two people, that was really interesting. I'm going to write that down. And then I just kind of built on that. And eventually I had pockets of scenes. And then as I was in my casting process, I met a guy who said that he'd already written a few features and that he was writing a web series. And I said, okay, that's cool. And then the next month I saw him and he's like, yeah, I finished that web series. And I said, okay, so how long is it? What, you know, how many episodes? And he said, it's about 8 to 10 episodes. And I was like, okay, how long's each episode? Oh, about 20 minutes. And I was like, what the fuck? How did this guy write all this in 1 month? And I said, do you mind if you help me? Because, you know, I'm at this point now where I'm at a bit of a roadblock in terms of, you know, turning my scenes into a fully fledged story. And he said, yeah, sure. So Christopher Price jumped on as co-writer, and he then would write in between my scenes and link them up and write dialogue and then give it to me, and I'd go, no, they wouldn't fucking talk like that, and then kind of give it back, and you know, after my editing, and then, you know, and then he'd go, well, that's stupid. And so we kind of edit each other's work, and then sometimes we just, when we got to a roadblock, we kind of met up and sat down and went, all right, so how the fuck does this work? How do these people meet? And, you know, what's going to be, you know, realistic but interesting, basically, you know. So that's pretty much how Trueface was written.
Being a lower budget, we didn't have a lot in the way of extra lighting and so on, so there was some street lights handy, corners, and so we'd strategically place the actors, and we got...
I think it looked nicer too, though.
Yeah,
It was,
It looked like what it was.
The venue where we shot all the burlesque stuff and all the cabaret club stuff was at the Red Rattler in Marrickville, and they were quite supportive of the project.
Yeah, they're a sort of independent cooperative, and they were almost going to be closed down, actually, and they survived that, so they're still going, thankfully. And yeah, the Oxford Hotel, we used the downstairs section because they've got about 4 different levels of very different looking settings.
Yeah.
And there's a main sort of bar that you first walk in that's very much like, I don't know, an 80s Priscilla bar. You know, it's a gay pub. And then underneath, it's like a nightclub setting where it's like we could shoot during the day But because it was underground, it looked like it was at night. So it was brilliant because obviously they have patrons at night and they were, very supportive, very helpful
Extremely supportive.
financially. And then above that, they have a cabaret set up. And then above that, they have the Polo Lounge, which is, they've got a grand piano and all this
It's all light and airy.
very, sort of poshy looking. And we use that as well for another scene. So we kind of maximized on our locations. And I was working a full-time corporate job at the time, so we were pretty much just shooting on weekends. So it was whatever we could squeeze in on a weekend is what we shot.
Well, most of what I shot was on a 60D, Canon 60D. We had some other camera people in as well with 5Ds, and I think it was mainly, I think it
pretty
was
much
all DSLRs.
The fact that I knew I didn't have any funding support meant that I had less money and less time. So, and I come from a theatre background, so it's all about knowing what you're doing before you get on the stage because you're in front of an audience and there's no take two. So for me, I said to, my actors and I said to Igor, what I want to be doing when we get on set is no fucking take two. So that way everyone was really prepared to have their shit together and we could just get through the schedule. If, of course, and it happens because of whatever reason, external reasons, someone's having a bad day or something fucks up, you then need to go through a bit of a process, with the actor. It's just getting them into the right headspace. It's kind of saying, okay, don't stress or worry about this. This is where you are, or I'll ask them, where are you? What's happening? Just take me to that place. And they're kind of, most of the time in their own head, and they're kind of, all right, I'm good to go. And it's like, okay. And then if they still struggle, then I might have to bring in other sort of techniques where I'd have to, if, for example, the energy's lacking and it's a high energy scene, then I have to maybe get them to run around, get some sort of, wake them up, or, get them to think about something else that brings them energy, whatever. It depends on the circumstances. I guess it's kind of hard, as a filmmaker, especially an indie filmmaker, especially in Australia, especially when you fund it yourself, you kind of need to involuntarily put on a zillion hats and understand multiple areas of, the filmmaking process. For me, I enjoy performing and directing. And in terms of the business side of things, I've had to learn about it without wanting to be honest. So many people had, spoken to me about it as I was talking about the projects. Oh yes, but have you thought about this and have you thought about that? And I'm like, no, I don't give a fuck about that. I want to make my fucking film. I'll get someone else to think about that. But obviously I don't have the luxury with the money and so on. So, it's one of those things where I've had to understand, the process, and understand that you've got to think about markets and you've got to think about, who you're targeting and what audience you're going for and what platform and all these things. And so, maybe it's partially been left to the side because that's my preference. But, it was a feat sort of doing the script, and it was a feat sort of doing the rehearsal period. And it was a feat in pre-production, and every part of the process is so long and difficult. Yeah. So now I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, one thing at a time. Like I'll just get through one thing, and then I'll get to the next.
Look, realistically, knowing that we had very limited budget and all the other stuff that we had to face going into it, our main goal was to get it to festivals. We were like, if we get into festivals, we then have we've got something, to then leverage off that to make festivals. Sorry, to maybe get distribution, to do other things. But we needed a festival release. That was the thing we were working towards.